Trials of a Royal Guard. By Ansel. Chapter 3. Unexpected Reminders. Dealing with civilian ponies can be tricky for some members of the military. When you've been in the Guard or Army long enough, you sort of forget that life outside of those organizations lacks all of the hierarchy. You can yell at a civilian pony to follow your orders, but she isn't obligated to do so. She never swore an oath. This wasn't really a lesson I'd learned so much as just gleaned from being married to Crystal Wishes and around her friends. They acted differently than I did. Chief Steelwings must have been basing my temperament on my reaction to Tranquil Dusk and Crimson Dawn. Either that or he simply didn't want to deal with this problem. I descended the various flights of stairs until I was in the depths of the honor. This was where all of the systems that ran the ship's propulsion were maintained. For as much as I loved airships, I didn't really understand how they worked. That was outside of my area of skill. Outside of the bulkhead to the main engine room, I found two soldiers. They stood at attention as I walked past. Civilian ponies, even trusted ones, were not allowed to work unsupervised on military property. I nodded at them. At ease. Any progress? The soldier nearest me shook his head. No, sir. I'm not sure they know what they're doing. Great. Thanks, I'll see what I can do. 3 ponies were on the other side of the bulkhead working on the various parts of the engine. They all wore light blue jumpsuits and seemed, more or less, interested in a particular set of pistons. Gentle ponies, where are we at? I asked, and they all turned to me. For the most part, under the jumpsuits and goggles they all looked the same. The first one's mane was red and cream with a matching reddish-brown coat. The second was grey and had contrasting aqua eyes that were very obvious through the goggles. The third pony was Runic. The grey Pegasus shook his head. Runic? I'm not Runic File. My head tilted. I never said Runic File. He quickly shook his head, the dark red mane shifting under the goggles. Don't be silly, Silent Knight, every pony knows Runic File. You didn't have to say the whole name for me to make the connection. The other 2 ponies stared on in confusion while we pushed through our exchange. I never said my name, either. The pony that was, without a doubt, my cousin Runic cleared his throat. Oh. Would you believe I'm a mind reader? No. Oh. Then smoke bomb. His hoof moved but nothing happened. We just stood there looking at each other. You didn't throw a smoke bomb, I pointed out. Come on, Silent Knight, even I'm not crazy enough to throw a smoke bomb in the engine room of an airship. The other 2 ponies replied in unison, thank you. Runic, we're going to have to sort this out. For now, though, I have to get things moving. I shifted my attention to them. Are we anywhere near a solution? The reddish-brown stallion looked to me and pulled off his goggles, revealing red eyes. He shook his head. She's pretty old, sir. Most of these parts we don't manufacture anymore. Our spares are limited and, to be honest, it is a testament to the design considering how well she's has held up. This engine honestly needs to be rebuilt. That was not what I wanted to hear. I approached them and looked over what they were looking at. It made 0 sense to me. I'd have to just take his word for it. I understand, Mr. Helical Gear, he replied. Helical Gear. Is there anything that can be done? What are my options here? This ship needs to be in fighting condition. He shrugged. I don't know. If we could find another one of this model that has been decently kept, we could probably scrap it for parts and build up a few of the others. This one being the primary, of course. What do you think, Artie? The grey stallion Artie, it seemed, nodded and smiled. Absolutely. And, do you know what, if we took some of this apart, cleaned it up really well, and rebuilt it, that might work. We could potentially fabricate some of these parts ourselves. After all, an airship isn't unlike a wind-up toy. A wind-up toy? I truly hoped it was different. You know what, You're right. These ships were made mostly by Hoof long before we started using unicorns and precision lines. If we could just get a week or so in port, we could make some serious gains, Helical Gear replied. No kidding. That is assuming they'd let us take her down for a bit. She's been running almost constantly since we got here. Could you imagine what would happen if we tried to do any of this underway? Artie put in. Oh no, we're definitely going to have to. I lightly tapped my hoof on the floor. Stallions, if I may. They both turned to me. If I get you a week of downtime, you can fix this. Artie shook his head. Oh no, sir, but she'll run better than she does now. If we can scrap another one like Helical said, sure, but that will take a while. So you need me to find another airship and get you a week? Yup, they replied in unison. Okay, yeah, I'd get right on that. I hooked a hoof towards Runic. So, is this stallion actually helping? Helical Gear idly rubbed one hoof against the other. No, but he is really excited and hasn't done any harm. Artie chimed in, and honestly, our mainies have never looked better since he started giving us shampoo. That was undeniable. On closer inspection, their mainies did look excellent. I shook my head and turned to Runic. You're not an airship technician and this kingdom is at war. How did you even get here? Runic replied cheerfully, I had a clipboard. Aniponi will let you in if you had a clipboard. What? Was he serious? Alright, well, I'm going to have a discussion with the commander of the Army G2 about that. You know you'll have to go home. It isn't safe and you're not even supposed to be here. Ah, at least let me stay until I fix the airship. Can you fix the airship? I don't know, I haven't tried yet. Maybe leave that to these two. They're probably far more qualified. I hope. Helical Gear quickly nodded, oh, yes, sir. We're both qualified airship technicians. Artie added, and I make toys. Okay, do what you can. I'm going to get you the time you need. Runic, come with me, we're going to talk to Maya. Ah, she'll make me go home. I'm making you go home. Ah, Runic and I left the engine room and headed up 2 decks to the staff area. The honor wasn't exactly huge, but there was at least enough space for the staff to do some work. Our destination was the G2 office. Those ponies handled intelligence and security. The inside was basic enough. It was a square berth with 2 windows, 4 desks, and a makeshift office for the commanding officer. We weren't halfway through the door before Deputy Director Maya, or Val as I knew her, saw Runic, recognized him, and asked me, where did you find him? Engine room, did you know he was here? No, but I'm not surprised. Runic, you know it is dangerous here. Runic nodded. I do, but not on the airship. I was just going to help them fix it and then go home. Maya rubbed the bridge of her nose. Sure. Listen, we need to everything all right out here, came a voice from the makeshift office. It was Vice Colonel Penny. Yes, ma'am. We just have a little personnel issue. This technician is on the wrong ship. Captain Knight has him in custody, though, Maya said in reply. Vice Colonel Penny came out of her office with an amused smile on her face. Oh yeah? Since when does operations take Aniponi into custody? I thought that was our job. Who is the technician? My cousin, ma'am, I replied before Maya could. Ah, I see. So our stowaway is family. Yes, ma'am, he gets a bit excited about airships and I imagine he is missing me. I swear he means no harm, though. When we get back to Margol, I'll put him on a ship bound for home. Ah, Runic said. The Vice Colonel nodded. Very well. He's on you, though. Make sure he isn't a spy. Yes, ma'am, I replied. Once she was back in her office, I lowered my voice to say, okay, Runic, we can go hang out on the main deck for a little while until we get back, All right. I guess, it sucks that I have to go home, though. I wanted to hang out with you too, Runic muttered. Maya came over and set a hoof on his nose. Don't worry, we'll be home sooner than you think. I promise. She's right, I put in. Runic nodded and sighed. I guess. I just missed you too, and there were so many airships. I looped a forehoof around him and nodded. I know, I know. This whole thing isn't what we wanted. Come on, let's go spend some time in the sky. We'll worry about getting you home later. Runic's expression lit up as he said, that sounds good to me. General Ironhoof had gotten his look at Reindeer and what the Griffins were up to. We'd flown by at full speed and from a very safe distance. Even still, the Sudramore forces had taken a few shots at us with their bolt throwers. Nothing came of that, but it was clear they didn't like having us around. That was fine by me. I didn't like them being around. It also seemed like they weren't too keen on staying where they were. In the areas beyond their new fortifications, we could see they were massing and preparing to march north. That was something we knew before. We just weren't aware of how far along they were. They were far further along than anticipated. As such, time was running out, and if the Nordenver Griffins weren't ready, they'd be in for a world of hurt. The honor had steamed for Margol at its best rate, but it was quickly becoming obvious that that wasn't good enough long term. Colonel Hammer stood beside me on the foredeck, watching the horizon speed by. So, you want me to tell the Deputy Commanding General that we need to take the General's flagship out of the sky for a week and find another ship to scrap? That is what the technicians told me, sir. As far as me wanting you to, I consider that a privilege of rank. I tell the G3 commander, he tells you, you tell the Deputy CG, and the DCG tells the General. Privilege is supposed to work the other way around. How did I get caught like this? Also, you missed a step there. Such is the life of the Deputy Chief of Staff. Actually, now that you bring that up, when are we getting a commander for the G3? I asked. The Colonel shrugged. No idea. We never replaced the last one once he retired. I've been handling it directly for almost 2 years now. If it becomes an issue, we'll see about filling it. Otherwise, I don't have an issue with you and the others reporting to me. He sighed. All right, I'm going to go try and explain that on the eve of battle, we've got to shelve one of the few military airships in existence. Hooray! Better him than me. I waited until he was gone before settling against the railing. We were almost to Margol. An hour or two out at this point. I'd waited to bring up what the technicians had told me until now to keep every pony focused on the reconnaissance we were doing. If I'd spoken up sooner, the brass may have spent the whole time arguing over what to do instead of looking. That happens sometimes. One problem eclipses another. After giving the horizon one more glance, I headed down to the small quarters I was sharing with 3 other junior officers and, temporarily, Runic. He was back in the engine room with the technicians. I'd had work to do and the soldiers down there could keep an eye on him for me. That was privilege of rank. It was time to handle a little personal business before everything became chaos. We were in the calm before the storm and I'd put this off long enough. There was a letter from Crystal in my saddlebag. The response to the last I'd sent. It frightened me some. Would she wait? Should she? With a careful hoof, I cracked the seal and pulled the paper free. It smelled of roses, just like her. How I missed that smell. My eyes fell to the perfect pen strokes. My dearest Silent Night, no written words can begin to tell you how happy I am to receive your letter. I know that there is no place for you there where your safety is guaranteed, but if you tell me that you are safe, then that puts my mind at ease. Your grandfather? I suppose it speaks volumes to his character that I would have believed you if you had ever said he passed some time ago. Fences broken for so long are hard to mend, I more than understand that. My whole life, I had never met my mother's parents. They had no kind words to share about either of my parents when I finally did, and yet they came to the wedding, where they shook hooves and hugged as if it had only been a few months of animosity. Of course, with that said, I could never tell you to seek a relationship with your grandfather. Given the one I have with my own mother, that would make me an awful hypocrite, don't you think? At this moment, I am lying on our bed, where I miss you the most. It's hard to sleep without you. This house is lonely without you. But I will manage. I will soldier on. Because I know you'll come home to me. And when you do, I will love you in every way, as much as it takes until neither of us can remember these days we're apart. On nights when the distance between us seems too far, if you are able, look at the stars. Before I go to bed, I will send my love to each and every one so that when you look at the night sky, you can see how the stars dance with my love for you, and perhaps you might feel a little less lonely. Yours, always and forever, Crystal wishes. My wife was an amazing pony. She had an ability with words unlike any other. They'd filled me with warmth knowing that if she said she'd look at the stars and wish, she actually would. It was all the more reason to get back to her. By comparison, my letters were crude and simple. Despite that, I very much believed that they would be as important to her as hers were to me. I pulled a pencil from my kit and settled down to respond. To the Rose Princess, the smell of your letter has reminded me more of what I've left behind and what I now fight to return to. Each day will be easier now, however, knowing that when I get through it I will be rewarded. I can look up at the stars and share a moment alone with you. It will be our moment. Our Captain Knight. Did ponies just know when I was trying to write a letter? There was a soldier in the doorway. Yes. The brigadier is looking for you, sir. As I stood and put my letter away I asked, which one? Deputy CG, and he looked a bit upset, too. You may want to hurry, sir. Of course he was. I was the poor pony that had found out the flagship was in bad shape. I guess yelling at Hammer wasn't going to be enough. Such was life, though. All right, thank you. Dismissed. The soldier nodded and hurried off. I did the same. Keeping any general officer waiting was a bad idea. Keeping the deputy commanding general waiting was a monumentally stupid one. Once again, I headed up to the deck with all of the officers and made my way to the rear. That was where the most important ponies were. As I approached, I could already hear him, a week? A week. In a week, the Sudramore could be halfway to Equestria. Colonel Hammer was inside taking the brunt of the storm. I suppose now it was my turn, so I knocked on the door frame. Brigadier Gale turned, saw me, and narrowed his eyes. He took 2 steps towards the door, his wings twitching with agitation. A week? Have you lost your mind? I stood to attention right where I was and faced forwards with a blank stare. As reported by the Eminence Enterprises technicians, sir. Is this what we keep you here to do, Captain? To bring me insane ideas? Colonel Hammer cleared his throat. Sir, Captain Knight is actually part of operations. Chief sent him down there to. Are you serious? He is in operations? A pony that thinks we can mothball a command ship for a week during a war? What idiot put him there? General Ironhoof, Hammer replied. The brigadier came to a dead stop, other than his twitching wings. He glared at Hammer, then me, then back at Hammer. Get out of my office, both of you. Yes, sir, the colonel replied before saluting. I did the same. Brigadier Gale returned a curt one and the 2 of us retreated. Halfway down the hall, the colonel said, well, that went well. Sir. That went well, he repeated. What does it look like when it goes poorly? He throws a chair out of the window. If he doesn't do that, he'll actually consider what we just brought him, so I consider that a good thing. Passionate commanders weren't my style, but if Ironhoof had picked him, there had to be a reason. I simply nodded and said, very good, then. Should I mention that we have a stowaway, too, or just keep that to myself? The colonel lightly snorted and rolled his eyes. You're not very good at jokes, Silent Knight. Leave that to other ponies. Jokes, yes, sir. New goal, get Runic off this airship and back to Equestria as soon as possible. Author's note, when you're away from those you love you never know what is going to remind you of them. A simple scent or the appearance of a beloved cousin. It is hard to not be reminded of the cousin you miss when he shows up in a war zone. If you are enjoying this story, please consider taking a look at Crystal and Maya's website quillenblade.com for extra content such as mini-stories, an Ask Us form to submit questions, responses to said questions, and special rewards for the awesome folks who support our Patreon. End author's note.